Hey everyone, welcome back to The Clinical Trials Guru. Again, the website address is theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I'm very pleased to have one of our most popular guests ever, Patrick Stone from Tradestone LLC. He also happens to be a Clinical Trial Guru producer for life, so thank you, Patrick, for that. Patrick is a former FDA auditor, and he has a lot of interesting things to talk about from that perspective. He's got a lot of great insight for your research clinics out there, even for some of you monitors out there. And now that Pat's been doing consulting for the last, how many years, Pat?
2 years now.
For the past 2 years, he's been extremely busy as far as his consulting work, and he can talk about things beyond just clinical trial sites. And we're going to get into some of those topics today. The first one being good manufacturing practices, GMP, Pat. So first of all, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on again.
I appreciate that, and I thank your listeners for their interest and for continuing to come back to the site to review your new products and the things that we've done in the past as well.
Oh,
And
thank you.
in fact, April Fool's was my second year anniversary for starting my business, and it was pretty much the day I left FDA.
Really?
Yeah, so I hit that 2-year milestone, and we just hit our international business as well. So it took 2 years, but now we can say we've done international auditing and international business.
There you go. And yeah, happy anniversary for that. And I mean, you are one of our most popular guests. That's why I keep having you back on whenever we get the chance to. So let's talk about GMP in this video. Good manufacturing practices. It's something that us in the clinical trial space we hear about, but if we work at a research site for drugs, not necessarily for devices, we're not going to hear about this kind of stuff. And just first of all, what is this? Can you just tell us about it?
Sure. So basically, good manufacturing practices is a laundry list of systems that FDA deems as critical for your manufacturing output, for having patient safety in the market. And those systems, always include, quality, the quality management, quality control, quality assurance, your raw materials, your production system, your laboratory systems. So the FDA has specific systems that they deem as important for every audit. And so when I conduct a mock FDA audit, if it's a brand new site, I'll give them a full systems overview. I'll look at every system they have, from quality systems all the way to packaging and labeling. And if it's got a device component, I have to review that as well, because they look at packaging where the container that actually touches the drug is a device. So it gets a little exciting when you put that device aspect into it and look at kappas and their deviations. And a lot of drug companies, they don't necessarily get that device guru to come in and look at this. So sometimes they have a little bit of issue with that. But my main focus for the past almost year now has been all drug manufacturing audits of sterile drugs. And these are companies that are, maybe they have a warning letter that just came out, or they're trying to keep an injunction from coming, or they're trying not to get a warning letter. So they'll call me through my my headhunters, and I have a couple of firms that I specifically work with right now that have just been overloading me with drug GMP work, because there's a lot of drug shortages right now, and these problems come about by the FDA coming in, conducting an audit, and saying, whoa, wait a minute, your systems are out of control, whether it's your environmental system, your water systems, all of these things that are critical to maintain sterility and to ensure sterility in a product. And also there's an aging factor. A lot of manufacturing companies, they're on the East Coast, their firms are 30 years old, 25, 30 years old, and so they get into these environmental laxes where they haven't done a complete top to bottom clean down, and there's mold and all sorts of bacterial type infections within their production systems, and that's what we're at right now. Because a lot of times these big pharmas, they're run by businessmen, not necessarily the line production guys that kind of worked up from the bottom to the top. They may allow one or two of those guys in. They don't have a big voice. So when it comes down to shutting down a line so that they can do change control, put a brand new unit in, or revamp a unit to where you can assure that there's no contamination or no environmental issues, that costs millions and millions of dollars to shut a line down. So this is the problem we're kind of facing right now, where it's kind of like a balancing act, patient safety and bottom line. And I'm always on the patient safety side. So if I see something that's not bottom line, it's really not. I mean, I give my recommendations, and then I can only go from there, because the businessmen and the bean counters, they always want to know how much is this going to cost and how long is it going to take. And usually, for change control, changeover of machinery, you have to qualify it. So it could be 6 months to a year, because you have to validate that, hey, every time you operate on this machine, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to be consistent. It's going to have accuracy, and it's going to be able to reproduce this over and over and over. Because some of these machines could be putting out 1 million units, 100 million units. I mean, I've seen some operations putting out 200 million units a year, and so the change control on that is immense.
And yeah, it's definitely a balancing act between business and safety, like you said. And a good friend of both of ours, and a producer, a clinical trial guru producer, Mr. Darshan Kulkarni, he's also a regular guest. And we were talking about the compounding pharmacy incident last year, I believe, in Massachusetts. And are those some kind of problems that you get into as far as good manufacturing practices? Is that a perfect case of what can go wrong if people don't follow these GMP?
Well, so compound pharmacies are a special breed. The states usually regulate those operations. Now, I have gone to a few compound pharmacies in Houston, and we had some issues with them having unapproved vet medications or using unapproved vet meds for human use, even.
Wow.
Because a lot of times the chemical components are exactly the same, just a matter of how much, the dosage, or how it's given. For cows and horses, you use a different method of injecting or oral liquids than you would a pill or what have you for a human. So the state, in every state, they have their own regulations. And so the FDA is just asking these like compounders, hey, can you please follow the USP? If you're not going to follow the system's GMP approach that FDA offers or audits, because they're not necessarily a large manufacturing output, whereas like the New England case, the NECC, they were a huge manufacturing outflow. They weren't necessarily a pharmacy at that point, because a true compound pharmacy, they have a prescription for each unit they make. Okay, so in the true sense, they're a pharmacy that is having to specially make because of either the amount or the combination of drugs is not available one way or the other. Or like for children, you want to give them a syrup instead of a horse pill, because some kids, they just can't chew, or not chew, but swallow a giant pill. So the compound pharmacies come into play so that they can make this into a solution, an oral solution, so they can be administered through a dropper or what have you. But so they cross the line when they actually don't have a prescription for the patient that they're making the drug for. Okay, whereas with a normal manufacturer, they're just making bulk product drugs and either putting it into a syrup or a pill or what have you, or injectable.
I see.
And so the NECC stepped over the line in that case because they were making millions and millions of dosages of this compounding, and they weren't directed specifically for a patient.
I see. Now,
And so their environmental controls were the things that got them into trouble. They weren't assuring that the area they were compounding in was free from molds and bacteria. And it's expensive to do that, to environmentally control and monitor your hood or your area. A lot of sterile places, they have class A, C, and B environments where they're monitoring air and temperature and making sure that nothing is getting in that shouldn't be in.
right. So GMP, basically, if I'm trying to angle this towards a clinical trial perspective, let's say I'm a supplement company and I want to run a clinical trial in-house to make whatever claims I want to make at some point about my supplement. So I'm making the supplements in-house for the study. Do I have to follow GMP?
So GMPs normally come into to review after the approval process.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a grace period, a gray time where you should be following all GMPs. Now, with dietary supplements, they used to be reviewed as a food, and now they have a whole brand new compliance guide that puts them into more of a pharmaceutical. So then the environmental controls and the clean controls come into play even more so. But yes, so FDA would like you to start manufacturing that with full GMPs, but you have your scale-up batches. So where you would have a small batch just for clinical trials, let's say you have 5,000 units of whatever, pill or a solution. And so it's not until you actually scale up and start using industrial machinery and mass producing these products that the actual GMPs come into play.
Well, that raises an interesting question. As far as clinical trials are concerned, who regulates the actual manufacturing of the investigational product for a clinical trial? Or are they even regulated at all?
Yeah, they're definitely regulated. Those are called a pre-approval inspection. PAI.
Okay.
Whereas a normal, like, over-the-counter drug or sterile drug is called an API, or active pharmaceutical ingredient audit. So they have different segregations for different types of manufacturing. So the FDA will go in there before you start your mass scale production, and normally they'll go in there for a light audit, just to ensure that you're meeting the most basic minimum requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So they are done, but they're done very seldomly. I mean,
right.
So many new products are coming out, they can only do so many pre-approval inspections.
Right.
So they try to hit the big outfits. So the smaller, medium, and small outfits, they're not looked at as frequent or as often.
Yeah, I don't want to scare off any study participants watching, because they're watching. The sponsor has every incentive to make sure that the investigational product is not contaminated with anything, because that would come off as an adverse event for the study, and it would basically ruin their study. So they have every incentive to make sure that these investigational product, even though they're not the actual drugs, are being kept, what's the word, sterile, I guess?
Right, exactly, sterile.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times also a contract manufacturer or CMO will produce the pilot and scale-up batches, and so they're done in a GMP facility.
Okay.
So for a brand new startup, it's really expensive to have this giant manufacturing facility for something that's brand new and not marketed. So it's not usually feasible business-wise. So what most of the smaller outfits will do is they'll just call many. There's various and many different CMOs out there, or contract manufacturing organizations,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a CRO, but for the drug industry.
Right.
I would say 90% of the folks out there, they'll go to a CMO that's already has good GMPs, and they've been audited by FDA, and they have a good track record. And
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the compliance program, is to make sure that anyone you have manufacturing for you is meeting all the minimum requirements.
Mm-hmm. Well, that clears it up for me. And so just to get it completely straightened out here, I understand that pharmaceutical products that are going to be prescribed on the market have to follow GMP. And you mentioned earlier about supplements that are over the counter. Now, those
Right.
many times those are made in GMP facilities, but they don't
Sometimes-
necessarily have to be,
sometimes.
right?
No, they don't have to be. But right now, the FDA is ramping up its audits of these type of products, and because of the claims that they may make, or because of the studies they may have done with historical data, maybe not. They didn't do the full investigational trial
Mm-hmm.
like a new drug would, but they have some labeling issues. So the FDA right now is really looking closely at dietary supplements, what they're claiming, how they conducted their clinical trials, and they're looking at them a lot more like a drug product as opposed to a food product.
And this is all taking place now, and it's going to be getting more strict as we move along here through 2013 and on into 2014.
Definitely, because you have the FDA investigators now trained to do the audits, whereas before they because the FDA just submitted and approved and released the new guidance for dietary supplements. It takes a while for industry and FDA to get the training and to revamp their manufacturing or change their labeling depending on what they were claiming. And so now you have, in a couple of years, you're going to have a lot more FDA investigators trained to conduct the audits. And there'll be an emphasis on that.
Let's talk about that for the last 2 minutes as we wrap up this video. I know there's a lot of people from actual supplement companies watching because they're all interested in clinical trials, probably because of this new guidance. Can you just, in a nutshell, and to someone who may not have very much understanding of the FDA, explain what this new guidance is for supplement companies?
Well, basically, the new guidance is giving GMP systems information into the new compliance guide, and those compliance guides are free. They're on the internet. I recommend that either you can put a link to access for them either under this clip, and I can send you that.
Okay.
Or they can go directly to the FDA. I mean, most of the new outfits out there, they understand this and they have access to the information. Now, what FDA says and what they mean or how they interpret that information is still under discussion, because FDA will give you a paragraph and it will mean volumes of work for you. So you need to really look at labeling, how you are marketing your product, because a lot of the issues come about with labeling. Some of it come about with the ingredients. Like if you have suppliers from overseas, you really need to do your audits. You need to go over there and you need to make sure that if it's from China, India, Taiwan, wherever it's from, that you have due diligence and you ensure that you're not getting products from another country that are tainted, whether they be with mold, bacteria, chemicals, because a lot has to do with chemicals now. If you get things from China and India, they don't really have an EPA, so they're going to have a bigger chemical exposure than if you get a supplier from Mexico or from US. And so these are some of the focus areas that the investigators that come in to audit your outfit, whether it's just the clinical trial or the actual manufacturing of the product, these are the things they're going to want to learn about and understand, and make sure that the sponsor has a good handle on their quality systems, their raw ingredients, their labeling, and the actual way that they manufacture whatever it is, a pill or a powder or a solution.
Very interesting stuff, Pat, and stick around. We're going to do another episode right now, but I just wanted to wrap this up, and I wanted you guys to check out. Do you have your book there, Pat?
Yes, I have it right here.
This is a fantastic book. I don't care if you're a research site or if you happen to work at a supplement company and are interested. That is Bubblegum Badge and FDA History, and it's all about Pat and his experiences with the FDA. It is a must-read, I am telling you, if you have any interest in clinical trials, good manufacturing practices, anything that has to do with drug development. It is fantastic, and Pat also does consulting, so if you want to reach Pat, you may at your blog. Is it, Pat?
Well, so if they do a search, Patrick Stone, comma FDA, they'll get all kinds of stuff. But my websites, I'm actually developing a new website, because right now I just kind of have a home page.
Okay.
That just has links to my CV and what have you, and that's tradestoneqa.com.
Okay.
But another aspect to the book, it's also for the patients. If you're a patient and you're going through chemo, or you're going through a clinical trial for whatever disease state you have, this book will definitely dispel some of the myths and some of the scary nature. It may open your eyes a little more to how clinical trials are reviewed by FDA, and what you need to look for your own safety, and to ensure that you're not jumping into a clinical trial that maybe you're not ready for. So, I had industry and FDA in mind, but then I talked to a lot of patients that came to me after the fact and said, "You really helped me understand what I was going through, and you helped the people around me understand it." And that really, it makes it worth more to me that a patient tells me that than one of my customers, because my whole thing is patient safety, and that's who it's about.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because we do have tons of study participants watching, and I don't want to ignore you guys. And I'm actually looking at Pat's book now on Amazon on my phone here, and it's available. If you want the physical book or the Kindle book, it's there. And Pat, thank you very much. I know this is going to be very helpful to a lot of the people in the industry, and I wanted to give a Clinical Trial Guru producer shout out to Sarah Elizabeth Siegler, Resolve Research Solutions, Accurate Clinical Trials, Erdhart Clinical Trials, PTNR, Patrick Stone. We have Darshan Kulkarni. We have Biopharm Systems, Zymewire, Mozio, South Coast Clinical Trials, Breakthrough Clinical Trials, and St. Paul Medical Research Center in Miami, Florida. Thank you. I'm still accepting some producers, so email me, dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com, if you are interested. This is Dan and Pat from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thanks again, Pat.
Thank you.